do you want the viewer to experience the exhibition?
I think that the viewing experience is a responsibility that the viewer needs to be aware of. It's no sort of casual glance, it's no walk-through experience. It really does involve a slowing down of the regular and living way in which we have to negotiate our world. So I these days get pleasure out of seeing how that operates. I've just come from the Daily Show. I don't know whether you want to hear this, but you know, to see the way the works create that kind of slow down contemplation amongst sincerely seeking and viewing people is of great pleasure to me, and is a big driver for behind the ideas of the collection itself. But can I go on about that? Because the experience then that I hope would result would be the experience of learning about this great range of practice and process in making art that I'm referencing here. Over many years, the artists who are serious about their work reflect on what has gone before them. They reflect on the world they're in now and the new technologies and mediums that are available to them. And they, in the end, I'm absolutely sure, sense the same excitement which springs from the creative moment, which painters in the past, and still do, of course, experience when they free up, allow the mark to happen in its own way, and then to discover the result. So what I'm referring to here is the hope that our audience reaches a new level of experience, understanding, and of the creative thinking involved in making contemporary art. Well, I can think back and know that my own experience was starting myself with drawing and then admiring others who draw and paint, and being drawn into the adventure, in a sense, the context in which freedom of action, submission to process, and a belief in the power of art in their lives is an observable phenomenon amongst artists. And I don't think, in that sense, artists, although they're all special, they are very revealing of a common human experience. But you know that the problem we have is that people who are not artists think that they can never be an artist, and they build up a deep wariness and suspicion within themselves about whether they're getting it, whether they're responding to it, and whether they're understanding. So that touches on something that is obviously important, is that if that kind of viewer just constantly seeks a closed meaning or a narrative that has a closure of some sort, which many seek to do, because that's, you know, the kind of rational, reasoning thinking that we all have to bring to our regular lives. Well, they're missing out on the significance of the other part of their perceiving skills, which is to submit, is to allow one's senses to think. So thinking through the senses and thinking through the objects in our lives is, for me anyway, is an important way to understand what art is. This is the first time we've used the word art, almost, which is good. need to avoid that because nobody otherwise knows what it is. But Sue, if you press me about this, I can go on at great length. That what I hope all these people do is they reflect on their own lives. They will think back to when they're babies or as far back as they can hope to remember, and they can begin to think about how they learned to see. And that's one of my own reference points, is that it's led me to believe that our eyes and our seeing function is really just an extension of our touch, the touch of the body of another, and, because this also is important in our world, our relationship with objects that we come across as children. Now, you know, I'm talking about object relations, as I think the psychologists call it. And when you and I recently have been talking about relational aesthetics, I'm sort of picking up on that idea that deep down, the function of art is to enhance our understanding of our relationships with the world and with our own consciousness. This is fantastic for me. I've already alluded to the fact that when I started, art was on a flat surface, you know, it was paint on a canvas and the like. And I can remember almost the moments over the years when that began to change, and I started to think in what I thought of as three-dimensional thinking, where you look at something and you think about it all the way around. And you gradually move from a two-dimensional concept of art to three-dimensional. Now that sounds pretty straightforward for most of our educated artists, but when you engage in that inquiry yourself, and you can feel your mind change when you understand that. So I became an enthusiast initially about cubism, because that's what the cubists, it seemed to me, were doing. They were still confined to the flat surface, but they were thinking in the round, as it were. And of course that led to the application of found objects into the canvas, and you know that history. Gradually then the canvas disappears, although it has a persistence to exist in many practices, and the significance of the framed painting gradually morphs into an understanding of it being an object in the world, an object on the wall, and all of the processes by which it is created and hangs in front of you is embedded in the experience that you have of viewing it. So once you, and that's pretty straightforward. That's why I've always understood that, or thought, that people who are learning or are extending their viewing experience more readily accept abstraction in the third dimension than they do on a flat surface. And I'm just instancing that because I think that's a very common experience. The reason is that they can walk around it, they can see that it exists as an object in their environment, and they're not challenged to try and, I'm comparing this to the illusory mimetic representational painting or drawing on a flat surface. They don't have to go through the door of understanding that that's an illusion, or it's actually a falsehood. It's not leading you to the truth. The truth is the walk around of the three-dimensional object. So you're asking me about objects in this show, and they include works that have movement within them. Now, I've learned from Natasha in the course of the preparation for this show about how I should use the word kinetic. She suggests that it seeks to alter one's perception of the space in which you share with the work in a way that the smaller object that just has movement within it doesn't. I'm quite interested in that. That's something that's in this show. And of course the actual mechanical movement that is in some of the works you know, opens up. Once you discover that and you're allowed into your thinking about art, the whole world suddenly, you know, the things that are moving around you have a heightened interest. And then, of course, it goes on to the phenomenon of performance itself, the movement of one's own body around it, and then the recognition of seeing others' bodies move, become a very heightened opportunity to find new ways to exercise your imagination. This is a key word I use when I'm talking about art. By the way, I haven't mentioned in all this the importance of video. I missed that in talking about movement. Obviously there was the drawing, mark, making gesture, and then there was the mechanical object that moves, and then of course the remarkable age of video art, and that's well represented in the gallery, and I'm just amazed to keep learning about how exciting that is. It's been a medium of great importance to postmodernism and to where we are now. And so all those things are revealed in this exhibition.
Can you tell me what your interest in chance, the role of chance in mark making and movement and objects and development? There's works in this show, for example, that incorporate balance and chance. There's the chance of the mark making, chance of lots of different movements.
Sue, it's a terrific question, that, because the process of learning through drawing yourself, which is what I'm referencing here, has you considering what is happening on the page, what's happening to the medium, what's happening to the way in which you move the pencil or the brush, and then you become aware of your own body and how you what control you're exercising over that. So really this thing we're talking about, for me anyway, is a process of gradually relinquishing control. It's actually quite hard to do, to understand how important this is. But the process of the interaction of the hand and the mind and the eye is ultimately what creates our consciousness. And so this inquiry that anyone can make involves thinking about the rational and the irrational. So what happens is you become aware of the significance of chance in your own life. Chance in the way in which you pick up or select a crayon or a pencil, and then the possibility that you might use another part of your body to make a mark, the left hand for instance, or we have in the collection a video where a man puts paint on his head and marks the wall. So gradually you get to be thinking about the significance of our existence in time as it is determined by chance. And once you're thinking about chance, it's just awesome. You're thinking about the universe, you're thinking about the origin of everything. And ask any artist who's made work for quite a few years and thought deeply about whatever their practice is. I've been interested to sort of see behind the written histories of art, where some artists, I'm thinking of Mondrian and some of those early people, they develop philosophies themselves, and they're not philosophers, they're not educated philosophers. They're deeply thinking about their own perceiving system. The relationship with the Auckland Art Gallery is a very special one for Chartwell. It provides opportunity to go beyond mere ownership or self-ownership or a sort of more domestic collecting function, which is admirable, but this collection has joined in partnership with the people who we hugely admire. These are people who give their lives to presenting opportunities to the public at large to learn about themselves and learn about the visual and tactile and arts, and all of the other related practices that inform that. So our particular enthusiasm is sustained by the excitement that we feel when we think about the public gallery sector generally, and in particular, of course, the Auckland Art Gallery, as there is a loan agreement between the Chartwell Charitable Trust and the gallery. So it's a formal and yet very fruitful sharing of opportunities that we are more than delighted about it. It fulfills our hopes for the art that's in the collection and for the artists who've made those works.